Hi, I'm Robert Osborne. I'm back with our guest programmer for this month, the man responsible for all sorts of lively tales guaranteed to both entertain and also keep you awake at night. I want to say welcome back to writer and director John Carpenter. Thanks so much for being here, John.
I'm loving this.
Well, I'm having a good time, too. Now, the next film John has selected from the TCM Vault is a fright film from the Hammer Studios in 1957 called The Curse of Frankenstein. Why this film?
This movie truly affected me when I was a kid. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. First of all, it was in color.
Right.
It was British with terrific performances in it. And it pushed the boundaries for its time for what you could see on the screen. I was
in the way of violence and that sort of thing?
Violence and blood, but yet just the visceral feel of Frankenstein. You know, I was used to the old classic Frankenstein films from Universal.
Same story here.
Boris Karloff was unbelievable as the Frankenstein monster. But this teaming of Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, the kind of revolutionary new makeup that Christopher Lee wore, really was stunning for me at the time. And it's very British, and it's directed by a man. Later, I got a little older and got a little more sophisticated about movie techniques. Terence Fisher, who I've become to admire a great deal. Again, this is not a movie with a huge budget. This is a movie shot very efficiently in a very short time. But the amount of fear and suspense they got on the screen was incredible.
Now, this was, I believe, the first of the Frankenstein films done in color.
There had been some done back in the 30s, Mystery in the Wax Museum I can think of. But yes, this was unique in the
Certainly
sense...
at that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's what made it so stunning, is to see it in color.
Right.
I was on a double bill with another Hammer film, X the Unknown, another really terrific Hammer film. They were branching away from their science fiction films, the Quatermass Experiment, X the Unknown. They were branching a little bit into horror. They got the rights to Frankenstein, but they couldn't use the makeup.
Right.
So they had
I think they made a deal, didn't they, with Universal, that they got the rights to all the Universal monsters?
Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy.
Right.
Absolutely.
And they redid their own
and
versions.
remade them, and they're all uniquely entertaining and fascinating. But the two stars are really the reason this movie holds up, especially Peter Cushing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, all those great British actors that they had in
Absolutely.
even small parts.
Plus, there was a little bit of, you know, the British always add a little sexual, and the maid actually has her eyes on Baron Frankenstein. I even caught that as a kid. I thought, what's going on here?
Not much gets by a 9-year-old in Kentucky, right?
That's right.
Okay, well, let's have a look. Here's the film with Christopher Lee as the monster, and what was his first appearance in a Hammer horror film, actually. Movie from 1957, chosen by this month's guest programmer, John Carpenter. Here's The Curse of Frankenstein. Interesting film. And that was Christopher Lee's only time playing the Frankenstein monster, but that led to his being cast by the Hammer Studios quite often as Frankie's old pal, Count Dracula. And I'm here right now with the man who selected that movie for us, this month's guest programmer, director John Carpenter. Do you have a favorite scene in the movie?
I think probably when we first see the monster for the very first time, he rips off the bandages. I love the kind of reimagining of Frankenstein turning on all these levers to get the thing going. And the Frankenstein monster in a kind of aquarium bubbling to the top. That whole idea was just beautifully, beautifully done.
Now, about the music in this.
James Bernard. I got to meet James, and he's done a lot of really, really famous Hammer scores. And one that probably stands out the most is the score for Horror of Dracula. And he's told me some of his techniques. He's a really, really nice and wonderful man. But his music, really chilling stuff for its time. And even now, I have a collection of his stuff at my house.
It never really gets a lot of credit, though.
It does not. And a lot of strings, percussion. But he told me one of his secrets was to sing the title of the movies. I mean, Dracula. He would actually sing him out, Hound of the Baskervilles. He would sing it out, and that would be his theme.
Interesting. Well, let's move on. Don't go away. John's going to be back to introduce his next film selection as this month's guest programmer. This time, though, it's not a horror film, but instead a classic Western, and starring the best friend the Old West ever had, at least in the movies, John Wayne.